Welcome to the Young Turks. Giant day for you guys today. Of course, today's the day we are doing our 16th anniversary of the Young Turks, our Sweet 16 birthday party. That's tonight. If you are going to attend live, you must already have a ticket. Sad day if you don't. Okay, but don't panic / do panic because it's not too late. You can still watch it at home. If you're a member, the members get it live, and then you could all. If you can't catch it live, that's okay. You could watch it later when we put it up for members. So tytnetwork.com/join. See the festivities. I'm going to give a couple of speeches. Jimmy's going to give a set / speech. I think he's going to do more politics than comedy. We're going to do a panel where we discuss fun things that we've done throughout Young Turks history. But we are going to get pretty political as well and talk about progressive politics and how we can fix this country. Allison Hartz is going to come give a speech for the California Senate run. It's all going to be fantastic. That all starts at around 11 o'clock Eastern tonight. We're at the Globe Theater in Los Angeles. And again, you could watch it if you're a member. tytnetwork.com/join. Okay, I obviously have a ton of stories about the shooting that happened in Florida yesterday. It is one of the worst mass shootings in a school, and we've got to categorize these because there's so many massacres in America now. What we're going to try to do on this program is give you perspective. Okay, we're going to talk about what have, is it guns, is it not guns? What have we done in terms of countering it? Who was the shooter? Why did he do it? And then we will have obviously non-shooting stories as well, including what's happening to the Dreamers, and then what's happening in the wars abroad where we are killing, unfortunately, a lot of civilians. So let's get started right now. Okay. Now, as we had this shooting down in Florida, yet another school shooting, yet another massacre in America. We're averaging about a school shooting every other day this year, which is unreal. It's unbelievable. And you're going to see in the first chart, I'm going to show you how off the charts we are when compared to other countries. So I'm giving you context here. So let's start with this. This is mass shooters to guns in the country. So you see we have 300 million guns in the country, or nearly 300 million, and we have an enormous amount of mass shooters. So we have 270 million guns overall, 90 mass shooters from 1966 to 2012. And that's just to 2012, obviously since 2012 things have accelerated. Now that we're on the upper right corner there, when you look at all the other countries, they're in the lower left corner because they don't have that many guns and hence they don't have that many mass shooters. They don't have that many guns, they don't have that many massacres. So that is a huge data point. It's not the only data point, I'm gonna give you a lot more. But if you're wondering if it's the guns, yes, it's the guns, more shootings, more gun homicides, more mass shootings, more massacres. And we are off the charts when you look at the rest of the world. Now, don't worry, we're gonna get into all the other theories as to why this might happen, not related to guns. So here's more context from the New York Times. Americans make up about 4.4% of the global population, but own 42% of the world's guns. That is unreal, man. So we're swimming in an ocean of guns. Now, if it turns out it's not the guns, it's some other issue, mental health, etc., then it wouldn't matter. Oh, in fact, I'm told by the NRA and gun rights advocates, so-called gun rights advocates, that more guns will actually keep us safer. Now, I already showed you the first chart. If that was true, we have more guns than anyone else by an order of magnitude, then we would be the safest, but we're not. We're the least safe. We would have the least mass shootings. No, we actually have the most mass shootings. Okay, from 1996 to 2012, 31% of the gunmen in mass shootings worldwide were American, according to a 2015 study by Adam Lankford, a professor at the University of Alabama. Now, if you were to look at this in a black and white way and in an ethnic way, as a lot of the right wing does on other issues, it would be an easy conclusion. You say, well, obviously Americans are more violent than anyone else. Well, and especially if you don't believe it's the guns, you'll say, well, who is it? Come on, just say it, just say it. The problem is Americans. Americans are grotesquely violent. There's something intrinsically wrong with them. Now, they do say that about Muslims, of course, but when you say it about Americans, people go, how could you? Well, the reality is, of course, that's preposterous. Americans are largely like all other human beings. We're all affected by our culture in degrees, but overall, yes, we're Homo sapiens. It's not the fact that we're Americans that's causing the deaths, it's the guns. Okay, adjusted for population, only Yemen has a higher rate of mass shootings among countries with more than 10 million people, a distinction Mr. Langford urged to avoid outliers. Yemen has the world's second highest rate of gun ownership after the United States. Now, this was a time period before Yemen was in the middle of civil war. Now there's shootings nonstop in Yemen, but even before war broke out, they also had a huge rate of mass shootings. Turns out the two countries that have the most guns per capita have the two highest rates of mass shootings. I'm sure another coincidence. No, it must be that Americans by their nature are violent and people from Yemen by their nature are violent. It's just those two countries. No, it's the guns, stupid. It's the guns. It's not that Americans are more mentally unfit than anyone else, or that we have more people who are lone wolves or terrorists or anything along those lines. It's that the people who are mentally unfit can get a gun anywhere because we're swimming in guns, and the same is true in Yemen. Okay, we must be so proud. We're number 2 to Yemen per capita. When you take it outside of per capita, obviously we're overwhelming number 1. America's gun homicide rate was 33 per million people in 2009. So now that is not just mass shootings, that is all gun homicides, okay? Now that far exceeds the average among developed countries. In Canada and Britain, it was 5 per million and 0.7 per million respectively, which also corresponds with differences in gun ownership. So let's think about that for a second. So Great Britain has severe restrictions on guns, and their gun homicides are 0.7 among per million people. We have almost no gun control in this country, and our gun homicide rate is 33 million. They have almost no guns in Britain. When there is a terrorist attack, it's almost always done by knife or by car. Yes, some people die, but a lot less than our massacres that are nonstop, that average about 1 a day. Over the last 3 years, we do 1 mass shooting in America per day. That's 4 casualties in order to be a mass shooting. That is unreal. Do they have that level of mass shootings in Britain? No, they don't. Do they have that level of gun homicides? No, they don't. It's 0.7, ours is 33. Why? It's the guns, stupid. You still don't get it. Racial, so now let's go to, hold on, before they're giving this quote, there's all the other excuses. Now, hey, look, one of them is we have racial diversity. Now, I don't know why that would lead to more gun homicides or mass shootings. One weird theory is if there's different cultures, they don't interact well with one another and they kill each other. That's actually not true. The overwhelming majority of black homicides are against other blacks. The overwhelming majority of whites are against other whites. Why? Because they generally live closer to one another, they're in the same family, etc. Of course, part of the racial diversity theory, not all of it, but some of it is basically a wink and a nod. Well, we've got more black guys in the country. It is gross. So, well, that's okay though. Let's do some science, and luckily they have, and figure out if racial diversity is what leads to more gun violence. Racial diversity or other factors associated with social cohesion also show little correlation with gun deaths. Among European countries, there is little association between immigration or other diversity metrics and the rates of gun murders or mass shootings. So they're not just looking at America. These studies also looked at Europe. So in some countries, there are more immigrants. Some of those immigrants are Muslim, some of them are African, some of them are black, etc. And then there are some countries with less immigrants. They looked across all those different countries and at America and realized there's almost no correlation. So it's not racial diversity. That is not the answer. Okay, so let's go to another possibility. Whether a population plays more or fewer video games also appears to have no impact. Americans are no more likely to play video games than people in any other developed country. So look, at this point, this is a disfavored theory among the right or the left, but for a while, the right was obsessed with this. Oh, it's the video games, it's the movies, it's the culture. But our video games and our movies are all over the world, and they're not killing each other at these barbaric rates in Japan or Britain or France or anywhere else, or Australia. So where they did massive gun control and then had almost no mass shootings since they've done gun control. Hey, look at that, less guns, less shootings, wow. Look, this is super obvious. And if you live outside of America, you must be thinking, Jake, why are you wasting our time? You keep telling me that 2 + 2 = 4. Of course it's the guns. More guns equals more gun homicides, more mass shootings. It's simply the most obvious thing you have ever said on the show. But here in America, we have lost our minds. You have to keep telling people facts over and over again until they go, oh, really, guns, huh? I thought maybe it was the toasters or the cars or mental health. Speaking of which, let's go to mental health and see if that's the answer. If mental health made the difference, then data would show that Americans have more mental health problems than do people in other countries with fewer mass shootings. But the mental health care spending rate in the United States, the number of mental health professionals per capita, and the rate of severe mental disorders are all in line with those of other wealthy countries. So as an example, we have just as many mentally sick people as per capita as Australia does, Norway does, France does, Italy does. We can keep on going. Japan does. They have a lot less mass shootings. If it was mental health and it was same all over, we'd have the same rate of mass shootings, we'd have the same rate of gun homicides, but we don't because they don't arm the mentally ill. Whereas here in America, you just walk into any Walmart or anywhere else, be like, yeah, give me a gun. And we have almost no regulations, so you can just walk out with a gun, willy-nilly, no problem. We have a lobby here who keeps insisting that people on the terrorist watch list, people who are mentally ill, people who have committed crimes, people who want to buy silencers and armor-piercing bullets, that they should all have immediate access to weapons. Gee, I wonder why we have more shootings. But I got to tell people this, because in America, they keep denying the most obvious reality because the NRA and the gun manufacturers have bought all the politicians. They've bought off a lot of the conservative media, so they do counter propaganda over and over again. These are the real facts. Let's keep going from the New York Times. The United States is not actually more prone to crime, so that's another theory, than other developed countries. According to a landmark 1999 study by Franklin E. Zimring and Gordon Hawkins of the University of California, Berkeley. Rather, they found in data that has since been repeatedly confirmed that American crime is simply more lethal. A New Yorker is just as likely to be robbed as a Londoner, for instance. But the New Yorker is 54 times more likely to be killed in the process. Look at what we're doing to each other. Is America more criminal? No, they tested it. We're not more criminal, we're not more crazy. It's just that we let the crazy people in the country, I'm sorry if you're offended by that, but it's true. We let them buy weapons and then shoot each other and shoot our kids. The criminals, it is really hard for them to buy a gun in Great Britain. You know, this idiotic talking point that they have in America. Oh, the good do crime anyway. Well, yes, some people will commit crime no matter what. Some people will not commit it if it's harder. Some people will commit it, but with a rope, they might or might not be able to kill one person. With a gun, they can kill 17, 58, 49. We're making it way, way easier for them. Somebody might do a mugging anyway. What, are you gonna make that illegal? Yes, we make things illegal to try to deter them. And it doesn't work every time, but generally it does. Otherwise, we wouldn't make murder illegal. We wouldn't make robbery or rape illegal. We just go, oh man, we don't want regulation of rape. We don't want regulation of murder. They're gonna do it anyway. What a preposterous argument. It's just that our criminals are loaded with weaponry. Okay, so now more gun ownership corresponds with more gun murders across virtually every axis. Among developed countries, among American states, among American towns and cities, and when controlling for crime rates. And gun control legislation tends to reduce gun murders. According to a recent analysis of 130 studies from 10 different countries. So whether you're comparing America to other countries, you find out, hey, more guns equals more gun murders. Shocking. More American towns, you know, a lot of times the right wing in this country will say, you know, they have gun control in some place like Chicago or a gun-free zone, but there's still murders there. We win. No, you idiot. First of all, the people living in a gun-free school zone and the people that go to school there, it's not like they're on an island or they're on a different planet. You know, you could just walk into that zone. So what we're trying to do is make it harder for those people to acquire weapons. But the problem is nearby areas sell the weapons with almost no restrictions whatsoever. So yes, people can walk into schools. Yes, people can walk into Chicago and New York with weapons that they bought right across the border. Super easy. But even so, when you look at the facts and the statistics, the places that have gun control inside America, the tighter the gun control, the less deaths, especially when controlling for crime rates. So when you look at it, it is just simply not true that gun control doesn't work. It does work on an international scale. The difference is stark, as I have shown you in all of these numbers. Where they have less guns, they have less murders by guns and less mass shootings. And it is the evidence from 130 studies is overwhelming. The only people who don't want to hear that are people who just like their guns and they don't care that other people die by guns. They just want to keep their hobby and they want to feel safer. They want to feel more like a man. I don't know what it is. There's those guys and they're actual citizens and they do actually feel that way. And then there are the corrupt who say, I don't want to see facts because I get paid not to see facts. People like Marco Rubio who've taken $3.3 million from the NRA to make sure he does not see any of these facts. So I know, and again, if you're outside the country, you gotta be amazed by it. But America's unfortunately become one of the most corrupt countries in the world because we legalize bribery. Gun manufacturers give money to the NRA, the National Rifle Association. They then hand the money over to largely Republican politicians, but some Democrats as well. And they say, I don't care how many kids die. I don't even care how many congressmen get shot in the head. You will never pass gun control legislation. And since they were legally bribed, people like Marco Rubio, Donald Trump, and the Republican Party go, yes, sir. I don't care how many people you kill in my state. I will never regulate guns. I don't care what the facts show. I don't care that it's overwhelming evidence from 130 studies. Yes, but you didn't bribe me. Those scientists didn't bribe me. The NRA bribed me. It is sickening what is happening in this country. I'm not done yet, almost there. In 2013, American gun-related deaths included 21,175 suicides. And those suicides, we don't talk about them nearly enough. More people die from suicides, from mass shootings or homicides or anything else like that. And guns make suicide so much more likely, also overwhelming evidence to that effect. All right, they included over 21,000 suicides, 11,208 homicides, and 505 deaths caused by an accidental discharge. That same year in Japan, a country with 1/3 of America's population, guns were involved in only 13 deaths. We had over 32,000 gun deaths in that year. They had 13. Well, let's do it per capita, so we're 3 times larger. Let's multiply their number by 3, 39. We had 32,000, they had 39 per capita. When you do it by per capita. We're literally killing ourselves. And we do it willy-nilly. We let our politicians take unlimited money from gun manufacturers who profit off of our death. And they maximize profit while our kids get massacred day in, day out, and that is literal. Like I said, not just mass shootings every single day, that is a fact in America. In this year, in 2018, we have had a school shooting every other day. The means an American is about, okay, one more thing here. Go ahead. This means an American is about 300 times more likely to die by gun homicide or accident than a Japanese person. Americans' guns ownership rate is 150 times as high as Japan's. Now, they have 13 gun deaths. Again, if you triple it to match our population size, it's 39. We have over 500 gun deaths just on accidents. Oops, a kid accidentally found the gun, shot himself, shot his parents. The parent had the gun in the car, accidentally shot the kid. I've covered a million of those stories. So do you think that those gun deaths would happen accidentally if there were no guns? I mean, I don't know how preposterous you have to be and how many logical circles you have to go in and tie yourself up in knots to try to convince yourself it's not the guns when it's obviously the guns. Finally, I'm going to go to an expert here, Dan Hodges. He says, and this is really a chilling thought, but unfortunately right now as the it stands in America and the level of corruption that we have, he's right. In retrospect, he says, Sandy Hook marked the end of the US gun control debate. Once America decided killing children was bearable, it was over. So that's a British journalist looking in and recognizing the cold, hard reality that in America, we're never going to do anything about it. As long as we have this system of government where we allow legalized bribery and all of our representatives are up for auction. And I say that because you say, hey, look, man, the NRA has real members and there's a lot of gun rights guys in the country and they vote. Yeah, that's true. But is it because of that we have no gun control in this country or almost none? No, because 93% of Americans want stronger federal background checks, including over 70% of NRA members. But the NRA doesn't work for its members and it doesn't give a damn about 93% of Americans. It gets most of its money from gun manufacturers. They work for the people who profit off of our death. And they give money to the politicians, and the politicians say 93%. What do you think, you live in a democracy? I don't care. Though every one of those politicians voting against gun control have said what Dan Hodges is pointing out there. Yeah, we're okay with American kids getting butchered and massacred on a daily basis. As long as you keep writing those checks, yeah, I'm fine with that. They didn't do anything after Sandy Hook. They didn't do anything after Orlando. They didn't do anything after the Vegas shooting, after the Sutherland Springs shooting where there were 26 people killed in a church in Texas. They didn't do anything after the South Carolina church shooting. They didn't do it. And do you think they're going to do something after this? No. And yet another school massacre. And our politicians, as long as they keep getting paid, will ignore all of these super obvious facts because the only thing they can see is dollar signs. Well, all those politicians, I hope the blood money was worth it because it's our kids that are dying. Okay, now I'm not anywhere near done with these sons of bitches. Now let's go to who this particular shooter was, okay? After the first day of a shooting, we try not to say the shooter's name anymore, but you've heard that his last name is Cruz. It's all over these stories, so I'm going to have to say that so that you understand. First off, in America, we have this bizarre ritual after a mass shooting. We got to all rush out and figure out what was the ethnicity of the shooter because it's going to determine which side people are going to fall on and what they're going to think about it. If it was, for example, a Muslim American who did it, then there'll be no talk of mental health issues. There'll be no talk of different motivations that we can't figure it out and what in the world happened. No, that's how they are, etc. If it's a white shooter, then there'll be other assumptions. If it's a Latino or a black person in America, etc. People get obsessed by it. So his last name is Cruz. So people assumed he was Latino. To this date, I looked into it as much as I can. It's the second day after the shooting, or the first day after the shooting happened yesterday, and I'm not sure what his ethnicity is. I know what he thinks he is. So, and I know that Cruz was not his biological name. That's a weird way of putting it. His mother who had adopted him was Linda Cruz, and that's why he has the last name Cruz. Now, why is that relevant in this case? It's because it turns out he was a white nationalist. Okay, now ABC News had this story first, and they had gone and talked to a leader of a white nationalist group. His last name is Jereb, and Jereb told the Anti-Defamation League that ROF, which is the white nationalist group there called Republic of Florida, had not ordered or wanted Cruz to do anything like the school shooting. Actually, hold on. I actually have more stuff for you guys that is not in those graphics. Okay, so let me go to that was not the ABC quote. Let me go to the ABC quote. So ABC had the story first, and they said that they claim this white nationalist group, Republic of Florida, that he marched with the group frequently, and this classmates of Cruz talked to ABC News and told him this, that he marched with the group frequently and was often seen with Jareb, who is apparently the leader of that group, who also confirmed to ABC News that Cruz was at least at one point part of that group. So that's Jordan Jareb. He leads Republic of Florida. It's a white nationalist group, and he says, yes, Cruz was part of our group. So whatever ethnicity he actually is, and you know, in America, biologically, you go do those genetic tests, turns out we're all everything. But he considers himself white. That's not relevant. Who cares if he's white or not white? But if he then takes that and becomes a white nationalist, that becomes relevant because that becomes part of his motivation. So Jordan Jareb, the leader of a group called the Republic of Florida, told the Anti-Defamation League that 19-year-old Nicholas Cruz participated in training exercise with the group near Tallahassee and carpooled with other ROF members from South Florida. So it turns out, yes, he's definitely part of that group. According to the Anti-Defamation League that tracks these hate groups, this ROF, Republic of Florida, is a white civil rights organization fighting for white identitarian politics, and that they, quote, it seeks to create a white ethno-state in Florida. Look, they're of course lunatics. I don't know if they're clinical or not clinical, I'm not a doctor, but you really think you're gonna do a race war and then you're gonna have a white ethno-state within the state of Florida? But they're dangerous lunatics. They have a political ideology and they are fundamentalists, whether it's a Muslim fundamentalist, a right-wing fundamentalist, a white nationalist fundamentalist. The problem is that kind of ideology drives some of them towards violence. And that is, in fact, what happened here. Jareb told ADL that ROF had not ordered or wanted Cruz to do anything like the school shooting. Now, it's of course convenient for them to say that at this point, now that he has done the school shooting. Now, LA Times national correspondent Matt Pierce tweeted that Jareb posted a strategy for creating lone wolf activists on Gab, a social media platform that champions free speech, individual liberty, and the free flow of information. On the same platform, he called Norwegian mass murderer Andres Breivik a hero. So, turns out Jareb, the leader of ROF, was encouraging this. In fact, here we have the screen captures for you. There he is saying Breivik is a hero, period. He was also a white nationalist mass murderer in Norway, and they celebrate that. Now, this is him trying to teach people how to be lone wolf, what he calls activists. The lone wolf killers, of course, whether they are call themselves as part of ISIS or call themselves part of Republic of Florida or any other white nationalist or right-wing group, are mainly known for doing shootings without being necessarily connected to a central command. But central command shows them how to become lone wolves and murder people. Now, are there other motivations involved here? Of course. You know, it's bizarre. So the guy that does the Orlando shooting, we never talk about his mental health. He's Muslim. He claims to be a lone wolf inspired by ISIS. In reality, we know that he was also gay and had shot up a gay nightclub. And so he has, of course, a host of issues related to his insecurities, etc., and his mental health, because you'd have to be nuts to live down there in Florida and then turn around and shoot all those people at a club that you frequented over and over again. But no, we don't talk about that. Once it's Muslim, it's over, we're done with it, okay? And so that was terrorism and the worst, and we don't have to get into their mentality. In reality, they're all crazy of a different sort, looking for glory, looking for excuses. Most of them are losers. This guy, Cruz, didn't have many friends. This is a very familiar pattern, and he feels angry at the world. There's another reason why he feels angry, and that leads us to this. Jareb, and take it with a grain of salt because he's a white nationalist leader who apparently encourages people to murder people, but says that Cruz was, quote, having trouble with a girl and may have mounted the Valentine's Day assault for that reason. One more thing about that, another student at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School said Cruz had been expelled from the school after feuding with his ex-girlfriend's new boyfriend. So could that be part of it? Of course it could be part of it. And unlike the right wing, we don't think the world is black and white. We think it's complicated, and there are a number of reasons why people do what they do. But I wanted to point out the girlfriend situation also for a different reason, which is that a lot of these hate groups that are on the right use misogyny as a gateway drug to bring them down the rabbit hole of further hatred, of bigotry, racism, etc., and get them riled up. And then eventually, at the end of the rabbit hole, they teach them how to be lone wolves. They teach them that you got to go shoot cops. And this guy, Cruz, kept talking about how he was going to take it out on who? First, he gets angry about girls. He can't get girls. Then the extreme right wing tells him, oh, it's not your fault. It's the liberals, it's the feminists, it's the this, it's the that. And then he is, oh, yeah, of course it's not me, it's somebody else. It can't be me. Personal responsibility, the right wing despises personal responsibility. So no, it's definitely not me, it must be somebody else. Oh, you tell me it's the women. Oh, definitely the women. But guess what? Then they tell him it's also the blacks. So in this case, Cruz kept writing about how much he hated black people. Then they tell him it's the Muslims. And then he says, oh, I hate the Muslims. And then they pretended that, of course, the right wing, they're deeply embarrassed. Because now this is not all right wing, of course not. But it is the extreme right. And in the extreme right, they're embarrassed because he's one of their heirs. So they're like, oh, he once said Allahu Akbar. Yeah, read the post. He said Allahu Akbar, making fun of Muslims because he detested Muslims. So then it's their fault, and he gets more riled up about that. And then they tell him, what are you going to do about it? Are you a man? You going to do something about it? And then he decides one day that he's going to walk into a school and shoot all these people and kill 17 of them. So in case you're further confused, let's make it even clearer. Here is a picture of Cruz with a Make America Great Again hat. Now guys, again, I want to be super clear here. Not everyone who wears that hat is going to go kill people. But they bring these guys in and they tell them, the guy who hates Latinos, the guy who says the good old days when you would drag out protesters in stretchers, the guy who tells them that the immigrants are criminals and rapists, the guy who says he's going to ban all the Muslims. He's awesome. So not all the guys wearing red hats are going to do it like this. The overwhelming majority will not. But the people who are going to do things like this, they're like, oh, hand me a red hat. That sounds awesome. And then, of course, you look over his social media. Let's take a look at this. He's got lots of pictures with weapons, including that rifle, and then lots of pictures with bullets. He also has pictures of him killing animals and bragging about it. And so this is how someone is led down the dark path of hate, giving them the answers to their own failings. And then handed the further answer of, but you could be a glorious hero for our cause. And the way you would do that, I'm not saying anything, I did a flow chart of how you would do that, is that you would murder the people who are our enemies, who are making you feel like a loser. You're not successful in life, you've been a total failure. Oh, no, it's of course not your fault, you're glorious. You're entitled to everything. You're God's special creature. It must be those damn minorities and women and who else did he hate? Of course, Antifa. And by the way, the fourth group, he focused on blacks, Muslims, Antifa, and the fourth group was cops. They hate cops because yes, cops do investigations of people who are threatening to kill people. The FBI had two different tips that this guy might do something. So he doesn't like cops because cops might stop him from murdering people. So he also couldn't wait to kill cops. And that's how this particular lunatic was born and sprung into the world. So should we investigate all forms of extremism in America? Of course. And is the bigger issue guns? Yes. Because whether you're a Muslim extremist, a white nationalist extremist, or just some kid looking for glory in all the wrong places because you're super frustrated for all these different reasons, the easiest thing in the world in America is to grab a gun and kill people. If we didn't make guns so easily accessible, yes, all those different extremists would have a hard time. But in this case, this guy was a white nationalist, and that's what led him, in part, to do this shooting. Look into all the extremists. Stop playing politics. Make sure the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI are spending resources to target all the people who might do us harm. And if you're not aware, the reason I say that is we've shown you in different news stories over and over again. The FBI does spend a lot of money looking for Muslim extremists and actually does a good job of stopping a lot of those crimes. And we've given them great credit for a lot of that. Now, other places did not. New York wasted a ton of money and violated people's rights by investigating all Muslims in New York, and it didn't work. The FBI gets tips on extremist Muslims that might do harm, and they stop a lot of those crimes. That is great. But we defunded, by the way, under Obama in the beginning, now also under Trump, investigations into right-wing extremists because guys like Rush Limbaugh and Fox News cried and cried and said it was an attack on Republicans. No, it was an attempt to keep us safe because the overwhelming majority of the shootings in America and the terrorist acts, unfortunately, do come from right-wing extremists. So let's take it seriously so that less of our kids are murdered. Okay, man, okay. I gotta take a break. Okay, I'm gonna come back and give you some more context into guns, and then we've got other stories as well. Come right back.
Oh, did you guys help us win a Shorty Award last year?
Did you?
In the category of Audience Honor for Best Overall YouTube Presence?
Best overall YouTube presence.
We want to win it again this year.
That's right.
We want to win, and we can't do it without your help.
We need you.
We need you.
All right, so here's how we're gonna do it, guys. Look, we wanna win for best overall YouTube presence for the Young Turks, but we also wanna win best in overall Facebook presence and best web series for The Breakdown, which is great. But let me tell you about YouTube presence. Go to tytnetwork.com/YouTube presence, which is very logical. Click on the vote in best overall YouTube presence, also very logical. You can log in using your Facebook or Twitter accounts to create a Shorty account to submit your vote. You share your vote on social media, ba-bang, that counts as an extra vote. You're voting like crazy now. Now, do this for The Breakdown and web series and in a Facebook presence as well. And you're seeing the links to vote on your screen. And don't worry, we'll have them in the description box below. So easy peasy, you just go right there, just click, boom, you're there. And get a load of this. You can vote once per day all the way to February 22nd.
Every day, every day.
Go nuts, have fun. You know, we always tell you to get out and vote. This gives you an opportunity to do it over and over again. Sorry, you know, by the end, we might just get tired of winning.
No, and this is great practice for the midterm elections. You know, get that voting muscle in order.
That's right, here we go, ready?
Yeah.
Practice. Hey guys, we're back. Not enough time for tweets. I'm going to go way over here. I got to give you more stories. Let's go over here and continue. Okay. So we find out the shooter in Florida is a white nationalist, and is that going to stop the right wing from lying about it? Of course not. Immediately there was fake news all over the place. BuzzFeed documented 17 different fake stories. None from the left, none from the mainstream media, none from moderates. There were some pranksters in there that do their usual pranks about who the shooter is. Everyone else was right wing. All the fake news came from the right wing and pranksters. That's it. So why? Because they don't want to say that he's a white nationalist. So among the different fake news they had was, he is a communist because he was wearing a pro-communist shirt. Turns out, nope, that's a different guy, different picture. It was a 24-year-old, not Cruz. They just put it up there because they lie. They lie all the time and they don't care. Lying for a lot of the right-wing websites is not the bug, it's the feature. It is to do propaganda for their own benefit. Then they said that he was pro-Muslim because he's written Allahu Akbar. If you read the post where he wrote Allahu Akbar, he was making fun of Muslims. If you kept reading the post, you would see that he hated Muslims, he hated blacks, he hated Antifa, and he hated cops. And he was egged on by the Republic of Florida, was a white nationalist group. By the way, their leader admits that he did go to rallies with them and he was part of the group. He says, well, we didn't direct him, but their leader also had put up a flowchart about how to be a lone wolf. Now, pause for a second. Imagine that we caught a guy who shot 17 of our kids in a school, and he was a Muslim American, and he had been taught by a Muslim extremist group that he was in to be a lone wolf, and he hated cops and talked about killing them. He hated all these different people and wanted to kill them, and then he did kill them. Do you think we would have arrested the guy who taught him how to be a lone wolf? You know that guy would be so deeply in prison and in a world of trouble. Have we arrested the leader of Republic of Florida? Of course not. It's a totally different standard. But back to the right-wing media. Finally, they were onto something. They found a BuzzFeed article that says this. It said the quote, "Why we need to take away white people's guns now more than ever." But as you can see, that is actually the title of a fake BuzzFeed story. They never wrote that. Now that didn't stop the right wing from spreading it everywhere. Immediately after the mass shooting that left 17 people dead in Broward County, Florida, the Gateway Pundit's White House correspondent tweeted a fake BuzzFeed story that claimed white people needed to have their guns taken away. In fact, let's show you that tweet. That's Lucian Wintrich. First of all, it's insanity that they have a White House correspondent. And he writes, look at how racist this post is. First of all, it's totally wrong, probably purposefully so. He says, yes, despite blacks accounting for a disproportionate amount of the gun violence in the US, let's take guns away from white people because of a Hispanic shooter in Florida. 100% sound logic right there. Now, the reality is Cruz, by the way, was adopted by Linda Cruz, and that's why he has that last name, and he considers himself a white nationalist. Now, maybe he made an honest mistake because he's a right-winger, he wants to protect the right wing, he wants to blame the left wing, that's his natural inclination. He thought it was a real BuzzFeed story, and he got carried away. Well, okay, he deleted the tweet. And if he says afterwards, look, my bad guys, I didn't mean to put that information out there, that's obviously wrong. And I feel deeply embarrassed by it, but obviously we try to do accurate reporting here at Gateway Pundit. But of course, that's not what he said. After Wintrich was called out for spreading fake news, he deleted the tweet, but justified it by saying there were 100,000 comments on Twitter, quote, that reflect the same sentiment. Oh, that's awesome. So there's a lot of idiot right-wingers who agree with my racist sentiments and love fake news. So I put up fake news, then they agreed, and then I took their agreement to say, well, that justifies me putting up fake news. They are unreal, man. So look, Gateway Pundit is filled with lies and obviously total propaganda. I get that the left wing has Nothing of the sort. You could say they're left-wing outlets who are clearly liberal, who are too liberal, who are biased, etc. But there are no left-wing media outlets, let alone dozens of them, that just keep making up fake news. Donald Trump calls the mainstream media fake news. There is such a thing as actual fake news. That's what the right wing does all the time. They just print fake stuff. They get everybody all riled up. By the time they deleted the tweet, they're like, oh, did that lie get all the way around the world already and get 100,000 comments? Well, I guess it did, didn't it? Mission accomplished. And this is not the first time. They've done it over and over again. In the wake of the Las Vegas shooting, which was the largest mass shooting in American history, 58 dead, well, there it is again. Gateway Pundit used a rumor picked up from 4chan to run a story about how the shooter was a Democrat who, quote, liked Rachel Maddow, MoveOn.org, and associated with anti-Trump army. When it became clear that the story was completely false, Gateway Pundit deleted it from its website. But here we go again. Wintrich later admitted the story was false, but refused to apologize, saying that Gateway Pundit had gotten the information from multiple tips. So a bunch of right-wing lunatics tipped me off to a story that was completely false. I ran it. Then a bunch of other right-wing lunatics loved the fake news. I deleted it later so we could pretend to be in media and reporters and journalists. And then I don't apologize for it though. If CNN or Washington Post gets a fact even a tiny bit wrong, they're like, how could you? You need to fire all of them. You need to fire everybody. When they get facts wrong, they laugh at you. Again, getting facts wrong is not the bug, it's the feature at Gateway Pundit. They revel in it, that's their whole job. So they never apologize. What would be the point of apologizing for the thing you set out to do, which is to mislead people and do propaganda? So buyer beware. That's their job, I understand it. But for any mainstream media that picks up a story from Gateway Pundit or any of these right-wing blogs, that's a thing you actually should be fired over. Because if you don't understand that they purposely put out fake stories to mislead you, you are a terrible reporter. You don't know that they've done that almost every single time? But that's the problem with the mainstream media. They gotta call everything even. Well, the one side tells the truth and the other side tells a lie, but I gotta call it even. Okay, right wing, what do you have for me? Well, I'd like to help you spread propaganda. What do you have? Well, this is what they have, nothing but lies. Okay. And by the way, people like the guys who run Gateway Pundit work for them or other right-wing websites like that. They know that the mainstream media can't help themselves. They know that the mainstream media oftentimes will help them spread their lies, and then they will use that against them. They will weaponize their neutrality. They go, hey, you gotta call everything even. If you don't call everything even, the lies and the truth, then we're gonna say you're biased, and we're gonna call you fake news. And then what does the mainstream media do? Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, all right, you are respectable, sure. I will take your stories and pretend they are real. Oh, you have a tip for me. Are you kidding me? If you're actually in media and you care about the truth, you grow a spine and figure out who's consistently lying to you and who's telling the truth, because that's supposed to be your job. Okay, now, let's go to Trump. Donald Trump says that he's very concerned about the shooting. Of course, he did the standard thoughts and prayers. We'll get to a video of his in a second responding to this. I just want to give you a little bit of context first, though. Donald Trump received, oh, look at that, $30.3 million from the NRA. Now, look, if it doesn't affect him, it doesn't affect him, and he's an honest, disciplined, and principled guy. Now, 93% of Americans want federal background checks, so he could take the NRA money and go, no, I am a man of the people, and I will give you federal background checks and gun control. Well, let's find out if that's the direction he's going to go in. Let's listen.
I'm making plans to visit Parkland, to meet with families and local officials, and to continue coordinating the federal response. Our administration is working closely with local authorities to investigate the shooting and learn everything we can. We are committed to working with state and local leaders to help secure our schools and tackle the difficult issue of mental health. Later this month, I will be meeting with the nation's governors and attorney generals, where making our schools and our children safer will be our top priority. It is not enough to simply take actions that make us feel like we are making a difference. We must actually make that difference.
Okay, no talk of guns, no talk of gun control. Only thing he brought up is mental health. Now, first of all, on mental health, he cut mental health funding. But maybe on gun control, he might not have mentioned it in the press conference, but maybe his actions speak louder than words. So let's go to his actions. President Donald Trump's newly unveiled budget would cut millions of dollars from the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, which gun dealers use to verify if someone is banned from buying a gun before selling it to them. So double checking to see if we should sell that gun. No, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna cut fundings for that. The $30 million the NRA gave him, could that have influenced him? No. All right, by the way, this article was written before the shooting in Florida. So this was we got his budget on Monday. They're looking through the budget. They're like, oh, look at that, that's interesting. It turns out he cut funding for gun control. Here, more details. The president calls for cuts to the National Criminal Records History Improvement Program and the NICS Act Record Improvement Program. Both provide federal grants to states to help them improve their reporting of criminal records and protection orders to the national database for background checks, including domestic violence records. Now that would be very relevant because, for example, the Texas church shooting, guy had a history of domestic violence but got a gun anyway. You might want to do that check on domestic violence history. That is usually an excellent indicator of whether they're going to commit further violence and gun violence. So nope, cut the funding, cut the funding. How much? They cut it by 16%. So less gun control. As they are writing the article, the Florida shooting happens. So they add in this sentence. Another mass shooting took place as this article was being written Wednesday. This one was at a high school in Parkland, Florida. At least 17 people died and many others were injured. They were writing the article because they noticed, hey, we've had all these mass shootings recently, including the worst one ever in Las Vegas. 58 dead, hundreds upon hundreds injured, mowed down, massacred. And instead of doing something about it, they went in the other direction and they fought against gun control. They cut the funding for gun control. And lo and behold, in the middle of pointing that out, another massacre, this time at another school, 17 people dead, mainly school children. It looks like that $30 million that Donald Trump got from the NRA might have done exactly what it was intended to do. Don't do anything about the shootings. Pretend that you care. Talk about meaningless thoughts and prayers. Pretend it's a mental health issue when study after study shows we have the same rate of mental health issues as any developed nation. And the reality is what we have that's different than anywhere else is we have more guns per capita than anywhere else. We have 270 million guns in the country. But the NRA gave Donald Trump 30 million reasons to never talk about that. Most importantly, to never take any action on that. So when he gives you his crocodile tears about those kids who were massacred, understand that he is actually paid to do nothing about it. That's your scumbag Donald Trump. Okay, now let's go to other loathsome Republicans on this same issue. No, not this one. I want to do the, shoot. Nah, okay, no, we'll do this, okay? So Marco Rubio is obviously from the state of Florida. He's a senator there, and so the shooting happens in Florida, 17 kids killed, or 17 people killed, mostly kids. So Marco Rubio has to pretend that he cares, and he does, he says so at least. Oh, now Marco, are you gonna take any action? Nope, so let's watch what he says right afterwards.
Some of your colleagues in the Senate here from Washington, D.C. have already been trying to make this about policy and about gun control. Is this the appropriate time to be doing that?
It's not, only because people...
There is a lot that perhaps is unknown politically, but let's be brutally honest about what we do know. And I say this as a Republican. Republicans will never do anything.
Some of your colleagues in the Senate here from Washington, D.C. have already been trying to make this about policy and about gun control. Is this the appropriate time to be doing that?
It's not, only because people don't know how this happened. I mean, who this person is, what motivated them, how did they get a hold of the weapon that they used for this attack. I think it's important to know all of that before you jump to conclusions that there is some law that we could have passed that could have prevented it. And there may be, but shouldn't we at least know the facts? And so I think that you can always have that debate, but if you're going to have the debate about this particular incident, you should know the facts of that incident before you run out and prescribe some law that you claim could have prevented it. I've seen a lot of that on television, and maybe there is a law that could have prevented this instance, but we don't know that, and neither do they.
So Marco Rubio, right after the shooting, no, don't do anything, don't do anything, don't do anything. We got to gather a lot of facts, but you had a chance to gather facts after the Las Vegas shooting and the shooting before that and the shooting before that. Marco, where's all your facts? Yeah, the NRA gave me 3.3 million reasons why I shouldn't gather any facts. But I tell you, right after any tragedy, when you are most excited to actually take action, whatever you do, do not take action. Let me be clear, Marco Rubio has been legally bribed by the NRA to the tune of $3.3 million. Now, what do you think Marco Rubio cares more about, the $3 million or the citizens of Florida? Everybody knows the answer to that. Now, there is an actual honest Republican from the state of Florida. His name is Dave Jolly. Now, of course, he gets to be honest because he's no longer in office. So he has stopped taking the bribes, so he's free to say what is patently true. So he's former congressman, Republican congressman of Florida, and here's what he has to say about the Republican Party.
There is a lot that perhaps is unknown politically, but let's be brutally honest about what we do know. And I say this as a Republican. Republicans will never do anything on gun control. Consider last summer you had Republican members of Congress shot and nearly killed during a softball practice, and they did nothing. After the Pulse nightclub, Democrats had a sit-in in the House. Republicans did nothing. After Vegas, hundreds injured, over 50 killed. Republicans did nothing. The idea of gun policy in the Republican Party is to try to get a speaking slot at the NRA and prove to that constituency that you're further right than generations past of Republicans have been on gun. And so if this is the issue that defines your ideology as a voter, there are two things I would suggest tonight. First, flip the House. Flip the House. Republicans are not going to do a single thing after this shooting we saw today.
He's absolutely right. And now that he's freed from the treadmill of having to collect bribes from donors like the NRA, he can tell you the truth. The Republicans will never do anything about gun control. Now let me show you why. Look at these numbers. This is donations received from gun lobbyists in just the 2016 election cycle. Not overall, just one cycle. Yes, some Democrats took money, $106,000. I can't stand that. I would take that money out of politics immediately as well. But look at the Republicans. $5.9 million just in 2016 alone. Gee, I wonder why the Republicans keep voting against gun control. They got 6 million reasons to do so. Let me give you some of the different Republicans in Congress and show you the amount of money that they have taken from the NRA in their lifetimes. So this is overall, not just one cycle. John McCain has taken $7.7 million from the NRA. Richard Burr, 6.9 million, Roy Blunt, 4.5 million, Tom Tillis, 4.4, Cory Gardner, pretending to be a moderate Republican from Colorado, has taken $3.8 million from the NRA. And of course, votes against gun control. They all vote against gun control. There's our friend Marco Rubio at 3.3, Joni Ernst, 3.1, Rob Portman, 3 million, Todd Young, Bill Cassidy, you see it. Those are the top 10 senators. They all take millions upon millions of dollars from the NRA. And they do, and what is their number one job after taking all that legalized bribes? It is not to protect you, it is not to protect your kids, it is to protect their donors. And in this case, it was the NRA that bribed them, so it's the NRA they will protect. Top 10 representatives who received NRA funding from the House, let's look at that. Hey, will you look at that? It's also a giant amount of money, and it's also all Republicans, Republican after Republican. Hey, there's Greg Gianforte. He just got to Congress. He's still taking all that. He's number 5. He's a freshman. He just won in Montana. He's the guy who said he wouldn't take any corporate PAC money. And then as soon as he got into office, said, "You idiot suckers who voted for me. Of course I'm taking corporate PAC money. I was lying. I'm a notorious liar. You were so stupid to vote for me." That's what Gianforte has to say for the voters of Montana. So if you don't want your kids massacred, understand that there are people bribing them to make sure that they look the other way. Either vote to make sure that you have some gun control, any kind of gun control. 93% of Americans want federal background checks, but these bribed politicians vote no every time. Take charge, vote out all the corrupt bums. Corruption isn't just about starting wars, it isn't just about crony capitalism. Those things happen. It is also about this issue. Here, I'll show you one last chart. In this one, Ted Cruz is the big winner. And you can see the red is the Republicans, the blue is the Democrats, and it gives you a sense of scale for how much more money the Republicans take from gun lobbyists, and it gives you all the different people in Congress who've taken money, and these are the top two congressional recipients, and that was just in the 2016 election cycle. This is what corruption looks like, and the result is 17 people dead in a school down in Florida. Okay, I got to take another break here. I'm going to come back, do one more segment for you guys. I'll be right back.
Corey, did you hear the news? Yeah? You know what we have to do, right? Let's do it.
And I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
Hey, bud, you still there? Yeah, I had the dream again. Yeah. No, I was in the rain this time. It was pretty cute.
All right, guys, you know, sometimes in the middle of the live stream breaks, I'm giving you ads. We're doing them live. That's fun and new and different. Mainly for aspiration.com. They're a wonderful place to put your money. They work just like a bank. They're online. They save, and if you're wondering, I keep telling you about how they have no minimum monthly balance requirements, no minimum monthly deposits. They let you set any fees that you want. How are they doing that? They don't have any retail stores, so they save an enormous amount of money. They don't do any ads like the on television like the JP Morgan Chase and all those other guys. And they actually keep your money in clean places, no private prisons, no defense contractors, etc. So that's how they do it. And then they give away 10% of the money to charity as well. So keep your money in a place that's clean, that's progressive, aspiration.com. We wouldn't have them as a sponsor if they weren't wonderfully progressive. Feel good about where you have your money. All right. back on a Young Turks, just 2 tweets because I'm running so late. Ishkabibble says, happy birthday, TYT, too strong. Thank you. Guys, if you're members, don't forget at around 11 o'clock Eastern tonight, we've got our birthday party / rally. There's gonna be hundreds of people there, but you guys can watch from home. And if you're not a member, tytnetwork.com/join. It's $10, the same price that you would have paid to attend the rally in person. All the Young Turks hosts are gonna be there, so check that out. And thank you for the happy birthday wishes. And I got to get this segment done so I could rush over there and meet some of you guys. Tom Zawacki says, how can Americans afford all these guns? I could barely afford to pay my bills each month. I know. And then Dr. Chaos MD says, Americans have not lost their minds when it comes to gun control. We have lost control of the rampant corruption of our government. Agreed, wolf-pack.com. And on our 16th anniversary, our members of the day are Josh Acosta and Julia Hose. We will have a so-called second hour for you guys in a little bit in the next segment, but no post-game or Rebel headquarters tonight because we're doing that birthday party. Okay, I have an update for you guys before I get to the next stories. So an update just came in as we were doing the show live. Now the white nationalist that I was telling you about, the leader of Republic of Florida, Jordan Jareb, is saying that he, quote, lied that Nicholas Cruz was part of their group. But it gets better than that. He says he lied or was underslept and made a mistake, whatever the hell that means. So law enforcement is now not clear, and they say they have, quote, no known ties between Cruz and Jareb. So that doesn't mean that they don't have ties. They say right now we don't know of ties. I don't know if Jareb was weirdly trying to take credit for Cruz or now realizes after taking credit, oops, I told people how to be white nationalist lone wolf killers, and then this guy that I said was with us killed 17 people. That might mean I'm in trouble, so now I underslept. And then when asked to defend that preposterous claim, he said, are you really going to blame me for the lying Jew media? So you take that for what it's worth, but right now that is what Jareb and the authorities are saying. Okay. Now let's go over here. Okay, one last story on gun control. So after the Las Vegas shooting, the Republicans said they're going to do something about gun control, and they actually did propose 2 bills. So let's be fair to them and give them credit for what they have done. So the first one was the Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act. Well, okay, that doesn't seem like it's for gun control, but let's find out what's in it. As USA Today reports, the other major piece of legislation backed by the NRA, because they talked about a couple of the other one I'm going to tell you about in a second, covers concealed carry across state lines. The legislation would nationalize concealed carry laws. Essentially, if you have a permit in your own state, that would allow you to carry your firearm into another state. Wait a minute, that's not for gun control, that's against gun control. Well, it's also against state rights. So if New York wants to more tightly regulate guns, this law says you're not allowed to do that. I don't care about your state's rights. I want to make sure that guns are everywhere. So if there's somebody from another state who got guns, well, I want to make sure that they can drive into your state and do any shooting they like. So far, 1 out of 2 is not for gun control. It's to spread guns more. Gee, I wonder if all those bribes by the NRA made a difference for the Republicans. Okay, well, let's be fair. The second one has a very pleasant name. This is called the SHARE Act. They also push for this. This is after the worst massacre in recent US history, that is the Las Vegas shooting. This is before the shooting in Florida. Let's see if that was gonna help, and maybe it could have prevented the shooting in Florida if they had just, reined in the gun problem that we have in America after that massacre in Vegas. So what's in it? Well, garnering the most attention is a provision that will loosen restrictions on purchasing gun silencers, which are currently regulated under the National Firearms Act. By law, people who want a silencer must pay a $200 tax and go through a longer registration process that includes a criminal background check. The Republicans wanted to take that away. You want silencers? Have at it, Hoss. Oh, somebody just murdered 58 people and shot and wounded hundreds of people by shooting into a crowd, and he did it in a surreptitious way. He snuck the guns into the hotel room, etc. Well, let's make killing people surreptitiously even easier. Let them buy silencer with less checks. Okay, that's not all that was in the SHARE Act. Here's some other provisions. It allowed gun owners to carry registered firearms across state lines. They're obsessed with making sure that the guns can be everywhere. It also allowed them to carry firearms in the national parks and no longer classified shotguns, shotgun shells, and large caliber rifles as destructive devices, which would remove certain registration and taxation requirements, as well as prohibitions in some states. So make silencers easier, shotguns easier, and once you've got them and you'd like to murder people, by all means cross state lines and do it at your leisure. So after all the shootings, they did not make shootings harder, they made them easier. The NRA has given tens of millions of dollars to Republicans throughout the years. They gave $30 million to Donald Trump alone in just the last election cycle. Well, they got exactly what they bargained for. Corruption works, unfortunately, in America, and it's literally killing us. Okay, now I'm going to DACA. Now, a lot of the people in the mainstream media tell me to celebrate bipartisanship, that it's a wonderful thing. I think it depends. If they come up with a good compromise, I understand and of course appreciate the need for compromise. We're practical, but oftentimes they come up with disastrous compromises, and that is the case in the immigration bill. So let me tell you what they came up with just last night. Talking Points memo reporting here on Wednesday night, a group of Republican and Democratic senators nailed down a difficult compromise on immigration that has been weeks in the making, a bill that provides a 12-year path to citizenship for young immigrants known as Dreamers, allocates the full $25 billion President Trump has demanded for the US-Mexico border, bans the parents of DACA recipients from ever receiving citizenship, and bars legal permanent residents from sponsoring their adult unmarried children. That's a terrible compromise. So on the one hand, okay, you protect Dreamers, but they have an enormous pathway to citizenship, 12 years. Remember, indentured servitude was just 7 years. But in return for that, Donald Trump asked for a preposterous $25 billion. Earlier, he'd been asking for $2.5 billion. But he thinks these Democrats will give me anything, so I'll ask for 25. And the Democrats gave it to him, $25 billion. And then you can't protect the Dreamers' parents. You can't sponsor family members from coming in the particular provision that I just read to you. All of these horrible provisions are in there, beginning to cut down on not illegal immigration, but legal immigration. And the Democrats said yes. Now here comes the twist. After they agree to this terrible compromise, Trump comes in and goes, ha ha, not gonna give it to you anyway. So he sends his Department of Homeland Security to go crap all over the compromise legislation. The Department of Homeland Security says that this bill destroys the ability of men and women from the Department of Homeland Security to remove millions of illegal aliens. It would be the end of immigration enforcement in America. That is very strong language, obviously preposterous, but they don't want this to pass. No, Trump has told them he doesn't want a compromise. He wants everything. He doesn't want a compromise that is massively in favor of the Republicans. He wants everything because he thinks these Democrats are so weak, so pathetic. I'll just break them and they'll give me everything and get nothing in return. It is actually a feasible outcome, knowing the Democrats. They continue that the bill ignores the lessons of 9/11 and significantly increases the risk of crime and terrorism. Again, outrageous, over-the-top talk, preposterous. None of the provisions have anything to do with how the 9/11 terrorists got into the country. They got in on business and tourist and student visas. This doesn't address any of that. It has to do with the wall, and none of the 9/11 guys were Dreamers. So they just made that up. They just go 9/11, boo! There's nothing that they won't stoop to try to get their way. Well, it was so outrageous that even Lindsey Graham, who thought he was buddies with Donald Trump, turns out he's disappointed. In fact, he says he's, quote, incredibly disappointed in the Department of Homeland Security for releasing such a politicized statement. What did you expect from the Trump White House? These politicians drive me nuts. Oh, golly gee, the Trump White House is being political. I've got the vapors. And then Graham continues to say, instead of offering thoughts and advice or even constructive criticism, they are acting more like a political organization intent on poisoning the well. You don't say, Lindsey. Of course, that's what they do all the time. So Trump is saying, you gave me almost everything I wanted. Idiots, I'm gonna ask for more. Because they've enabled him and they've empowered him to denigrate all progressive priorities and to demand everything in return. So, hey, Democrats, how's that negotiation strategy working out for you? Because I was told that you guys play three-dimensional chess and you're all practical and geniuses. And that if you just give in to Trump over and over and over again, that you'll get your way. Does it look like we're getting our way? No, you've traded away everything. This is a terrible idea. There actually is one compromise bill that is not so bad. So now look, it's not anywhere near perfect and it's got a whole host of problems. I wouldn't write it anywhere like this. But I'm telling you, progressives are not impractical. But corporate Democrats, establishment Democrats, give away everything and say, well, that's the practical thing to do. No, it's not. To fight for our priorities as well is practical. There is, believe it or not, actually a bipartisan bill that is not, again, it's not great, but it's way better than the other one. So another bill up for a Thursday vote drafted by Democratic Senator Coons and Senator John McCain, a Republican, will likely get more Democratic votes, but fewer Republican ones. That bill gives Dreamers a shorter pathway to citizenship, 5 years instead of 10 to 12, and doesn't touch family reunification or diversity visas or the question of Dreamer parents. So a friendly piece of advice to Democrats, vote for that one, not the terrible compromise Trump is not going to take anyway. So insist on the one that is better. And then if you don't get your vote, then you know what you do? You do a political fight. You take it to the people. And you say, if these bums, you know how many people, over 80% of Americans want the Dreamers to have a pathway to citizenship. If you can't win on that issue, then retire. If you say, I am such an incompetent politician that I need more than 80% of the people on my side, please retire. Please step aside, okay? Let real progressives run, people who know politics, who are practical, and who know how to win. So again, stick with the Coons-McCain bill, and if Trump and the other Republicans vote no, then kick their ass with it, and then get enough Democrats in that will vote for that bill. I know, very complicated, very hard for simple-minded establishment Democrats to understand. Okay, or you could do what you're likely to do. Give Donald Trump even more. They're unbearable. All right, guys, I'm out of time. We got to go do the anniversary party. They got to do the second hour. So I'll save some of these stories that are important as well, of course, till tomorrow. We'll do a Friday power panel tomorrow. Brett and Kim are coming in. Look, they got the Stormy Daniels story. Don't think that it's just salacious. Number one, campaign finance laws were almost very clearly broken, and America's obsessed with sex. Stormy Daniels claims she has a Monica Lewinsky-like dress, and so of all the terrible things that Donald Trump has done, who knows, maybe that's the thing that brings him down. So they've got that story for you next. I'll see you guys at the party, tytnetwork.com/join to see the party tonight, and I'll see you there. Bye.
back to the Young Turks, everyone. Wow, we really made ourselves symmetrical right as it was coming up.
I did nothing.
I was way over there. Okay. Crisis averted. This is the B team, everyone.
What's up, JV?
Kim Horcher, Brett Ehrlich. We were gonna say you might be trolling us, but guess what? We're gonna troll ourselves. We're not that good. No one cares. But we have really great stories.
This is the worst.
That was a plan.
You're the worst.
Bart's in there going, we have a lot of great stories, our talents notwithstanding. Do you, yeah, I thought we had tweets, but we don't. Already proving my point, but we're gonna get into a lot. We have Stormy Daniels and her dress of many colors. There's an ICE lawyer, the top ICE lawyer in Seattle was discovered and indicted for doing some terrible, terrible things to people at various stages of immigration investigation. You've been saying the Olympic host city wrong. The name of it is not what you think it is. We're gonna get to that at least. Hopefully Happy Meals, they're changing them and we're gonna get to.
You did so much work for the Happy Meals.
I have so many elements.
We have to get to the Happy Meals.
Happy Meals are where I grew up in like the late 80s, early 90s, and so they're a huge part of my life.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna get into it real quick. Stormy Daniels. Stormy Daniels says not only is she free to tell her story, but she also has props. You may have heard of the In Touch interview that she did where back in the day she said in 2006 she had sex with Donald Trump in his Lake Tahoe hotel suite. In case you need to be reminded of what they look like, that's it. Imagine them having sex with each other.
No.
Yep, you're gonna have to do it.
I don't.
If you can't do that, you can't stomach it, you can't watch the rest of the segment. The reports were that she was paid $130,000 not to talk about it leading up to the election last year, and Trump's lawyer just admitted that he had done that he paid $130,000 from his account. It was reported in multiple sources and it was confirmed by Trump's lawyer. So Stormy says that invalidates the NDA that they had accompanying that settlement so she can tell her story. And she says she, just like Monica Lewinsky, has a dress with the president's materials on it. Let's take a look at that dress.
I'm
just kidding, I made that one up.
Yeah, that's not the one I looked at online.
That's my joke one.
That's like the Nickelodeon sponsored dress.
Yes, it is. The joke here is that the president is orange, and so that would be orange. No, that is actually not it. Here's the actual dress that she says she has. It's a gold dress, which she says was kept in pristine condition ever since the events of 2006. And so as this is reported by a website called The Blast.
Perfect.
Absolutely perfect.
Sometimes life just gives you the perfect moment.
Yeah. What do you make of this?
I think this story, I mean, first of all, I don't know what everyone's complaining about. Trump's lawyer paid for everything, so it's all fine. But when you look at a story like this, it's really hard to not think of a past president wearing a past dress. And it's a great litmus test for partisanship because we remember what happened during that time. And we remember, well, we can't remember because it didn't happen. Well, what would have happened? What would conservatives say if this had happened to Obama? And now we have the same argument going backwards. And it's just like, with this, we see people are just going to make some kind of incomprehensible argument supporting whatever side they had already. I don't care what consenting adults decide to do, even if it's outside the confines of marriage. What I care about is incentive. And if there was an affair and if there was a payoff, that does show some kind of incentive was there.
Right, there was a really great piece in the Washington Post that really outlined the question that you have after you might have the instinct like, well, this is two consenting adults. I don't want to close my eyes and think of it. I'm glad Valentine's Day was yesterday because I will have no sex drive going forward, imagining this event taking place.
Thank goodness.
But yeah, it is crazy to think we had 8 years off of this and say what you will about Obama, but if he came anywhere near this kind of a scandal, even rumors of a scandal like this.
If he had 3 marriages, think of how we would talk about, or he would be talked about.
So what does that mean? Is it just expectations?
It means people think the way they want to think, and they're gonna find supporting arguments and supporting ideas, or even things not based in fact, that go along with their already preconceived and preformed thoughts. And this is just, I think it's stupid. but it's also an interesting way to look at how people process things and how people argue.
Right. One thing to think about is when you're talking about the president's like approval ratings and everything, the Republican Party just went through this whole initiative where they're trying to focus on the tax cuts and economic recovery. And there's a whole block of the GOP that's trying to just focus on that. And they're saying, stay on message. Don't talk about anything else. What is crazy to me is what must have happened behind the scenes to get Michael Cohen to speak about this. Because this guarantees you something that they paid to go away during the election, that resurfaced recently when it was under a non-disclosure agreement. I remember she very tactfully went up in front of Jimmy Kimmel.
She had a really boring Kimmel interview.
Yeah. But that was news for a while, and now they're just gonna talk about this. And then if I have to drum back up the DNA evidence and the idea of all of like.
I mean, I went on a website's comment section for this and people are like, who trusts DNA anyway? And I was like, what are you doing?
I don't know what else we're gonna learn because there's so much that's out there already. The In Touch, well, first of all, let's look at the dress from Monica Lewinsky, just to give you that, back and forth. Gorgeous dress, sorry. And then we're gonna go after to show, this is from the In Touch interview that she gave, that Stormy Daniels gave, saying that sex with the president was textbook generic. I actually don't even know why I did it, but I do remember while we were having sex, I was like, please don't try to pay me.
Wow.
I don't know what else we're gonna get out. I don't want to talk about it, but there's still part of me that just wants juicy details. Fix me.
The lurid details I don't actually need to know. What I need to know is, why did money change hands? Where did this come from? Were there other things that were done clandestinely?
Right, yeah, the Washington Post thing everybody should go check out because it really does say if it came from a corporation to the lawyer, what does that mean? One of the craziest things that I learned from that was that one of the covers that the lawyer could have is if he makes these kinds of payments all the time.
What?
So if it's a one-time payment, according to the Washington Post article, which I didn't submit to graphics, but they said that if he has done that a lot, then it's just kind of regular business. And there's nothing different about that transaction just because it was closer to the election. He does that kind of stuff all the time. So if he's constantly paying people giant sums on behalf of his client or whatever, depending on where it comes from, but if he's making those giant payments, then it's just kind of a normal act and he might be more likely to get away with it. But if it's just a one-time thing, it's less likely.
Do you mean paying people off who've had sex with him, or just paying people off who have some kind of claim they can make?
I think it clouds the whole thing if they're able to say that, listen, I don't know how this is different than any other kind of transaction, and it'll be a he said, she said. That's why the DNA evidence comes into play, because then it can prove that they did have some kind of dalliance. Which, does anyone doubt that at this point?
I mean, it's likely. It's not surprising.
Yeah. The president's team says that both sides have denied it, but that's just not true. According to everyone who's reported on this, Stormy Daniels has not denied it. She has tactfully stepped around the issue.
She's avoided it, but she hasn't said no.
Because that means according to the interaction she had with Jimmy Kimmel, it kind of proves that she was under a non-disclosure agreement because of the weird way she was answering questions.
Okay.
And if she can prove this, it means two things. One, they were together, all right, case closed. But two, someone had to get a sample from the president to compare it to.
No.
How's that gonna get subpoenaed? Ugh. We'll leave you with that. We're gonna take a break. When we come back, we got a lot more show, including how they're changing Happy Meals, hopefully. And then in addition to that, some really shady activity going on behind the scenes of ICE in the Pacific Northwest. Don't go away.
I have decided that I'm going to get ripped. Okay.
What?
Okay.
Like physically?
Yeah. Okay. What, you don't believe me?
I 100% don't believe you.
I will get so ripped, here's my prediction, that someone at TYT will say, Cenk, you've got to stop working out.
We're tired of you winning.
So you don't believe me?
Cenk, you don't have time to do your daily
Welcome back to the Young Turks. Second hour. We have no more breaks before the end of the show.
Second 40 minutes.
Second 40 minutes. I love it. Kim Horcher, Brett Ehrlich. Kim Horcher, can you, where people watch Nerd Alert?
YouTube.com/Nerd Alert.
How's that going?
Pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Good. That's great. You can watch me on Pop Trigger, which is also great. We're getting a new graphics package. It's gonna be awesome. We're getting rid of the actual trigger to get away, in the logo.
From the guns?
To get away from gun imagery. We're done with it.
Okay.
We've made.
Is it more like trigger warning? Because people love saying that.
It's just gonna say pop, and then we're gonna call it Pop Trigger. We're not gonna change the name. If we have to, we will, but we've at least made some kind of tangible policy changes. So we're ahead of Congress in that situation.
Great.
We have a lot to get to. We're gonna get right into this first story. We're heading to Seattle. The top lawyer for ICE is under indictment because he was stealing immigrants' identities. That is true. It is reported by BuzzFeed that according to an indictment filed this week, Rafael Sanchez, ICE's top attorney in its Seattle office, allegedly devised a plan to steal the identities of 7 immigrants over a 4-year period while their cases were being processed by the Federal Immigration Agency. So people who were here, according to ICE, illegally, he took their identities and used them for various nefarious purposes. And he has been indicted on 2 counts. First, wire fraud and identity theft.
He's pleaded guilty.
He's pleaded guilty. He resigned the same day the indictments came out. And so for 4 years, he intended to, according to this indictment, defraud financial institutions, including American Express Company, Bank of America, Capital One, Citibank, Discover, and JP Morgan Chase by using the personally identifying information of 7 aliens in various stages of immigration proceedings to obtain money and property by means of materially false and fraudulent pretenses. So what this guy was doing was terrible.
He went into people's private information and took that information. In one case, it was reported he used a picture of a person who had been murdered from the newspaper for the falsified identity and used it for fun and personal profit.
So it seems like he was trying to go get like credit cards.
Yes.
And use that just to buy things, money and property by means of materially false and fraudulent pretenses. He used an energy bill, a fake energy bill from someone. He used someone's personal permanent resident card and the biographical page of a Chinese passport to do all this stuff. For me, this is bad PR for ICE.
Oh no.
I just mean but this is bad PR, but it's the kind of thing that you're afraid is happening behind closed doors. With Border Patrol, we covered something a few weeks ago where Border Patrol agents were, there's a nonprofit organization, a humanitarian organization that went in the treacherous passage between Mexico and America and was just placing water out so people wouldn't die. And this group, the Border Patrol was just pouring out the water. And it was being filmed by the humanitarian organization. And then in response, the Border Patrol raided their facility, which is just there to keep people alive, regardless of whether they're deported or not. Those are the kinds of things that are happening behind the scenes. This just builds out a really bad image for ICE and Border Patrol. And I'm sure they don't want that.
Well, what they're illustrating and what you're illustrating with bringing up the example of the water is a sheer lack of humanity, which is, oh, I can do whatever I want to these people. I can steal from them. I can be them. I can just ruin them, and they'd have no recourse to do anything about it because either I'm going to deny them or I'm going to deny doing this, and it's terrible. I mean, it's also been noted that ICE agents in Washington were active in Trump's immigration crackdown during the 4-day period where federal agents went to sanctuary cities, and Seattle is one. Seattle does not cooperate with federal immigration enforcement, and they've arrested dozens of undocumented immigrants. And you're talking about the latest in a long line of quote bad PR for ICE, where we see, a father of 5 who's been here for 30 years being deported, a father of a 5-year-old battling cancer being deported, people who are activists for immigration, being detained and deported.
Right, these are the bad, I guess when I say PR, that's the beginning of the point. The end of the point is like, these are things that are happening behind the scenes. But what's totally troubling is things that to me seem as bad, if not worse, are just like their stated intentions. Their idea of, the intention of the president to lump DACA together, something that most Americans are in support of, some kind of solution for DACA that keeps these kids in America and safe from being deported. That's something that most people like, and the president is going to lump that in with a bunch of BS policy, immigration reform that no one really likes, that most people are not in favor of. And that is what he is just saying. So as much as you might see something like this and it might make you upset to be like, can you believe what ICE is doing behind the scenes? Just as troubling is what they're doing right in front of everybody's face. The possibility that they could use DACA, something that people in good faith volunteered their information to say, here I am in the country, thank you for giving me protective status, to then immediately, the plan seems like it is for the president, if he doesn't get the BS stuff that he wants, to use that good faith in bad faith and deport a bunch of people who are here by no fault of their own.
It's exceedingly cynical.
I'm cynical.
No.
It's making me cynical, and I'm trying to change that. All right, we have to move on. We have more stories to cover. Everybody is saying the name of the Olympic host city incorrectly. Here's what, and NBC has made that choice. Here is a video of how they've been saying it at the end and during their telecasts.
Now the stage is set for rivals to become partners, if only for a few days. Miguel Almaguer, NBC News, Pyeongchang.
So Pyeongchang is what they're saying. Now there are people who are pointing out this is not how you say it.
No.
You're supposed to say it
Pyeongchang.
Pyeongchang, as illustrated by this video that's been getting some traction. Take a look.
I'm Stefan Kim, Media Watch co-chair at the Asian American Journalists Association. We've been getting a lot of questions from American journalists about the correct pronunciation of the Olympic host city. So here is AAJA's guidance. The correct pronunciation is Pyeongchang. Chang, like when you go see your doctor, Pyeongchang, Pyeongchang, Pyeongchang.
He could not have made it more clear.
It's crazy. So the response from spokespeople at NBC is, we heard a variety of ways to say Pyeongchang, I guess Pyeongchang, during our preparation for the games.
that also includes the incorrect ones.
Right, exactly. There's a lot of ways to say Ehrlich. I believe me, I've heard them all. And the way I say it is the way I say it. You should say it that way. And ultimately decided on the version in which the second syllable sounds like twang. And they said further that it's cleaner.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's empirically not. Pyeongchang almost rhymes with itself. Pyeongchang doesn't. They just like it because it sounds like how we've been pronouncing the North Korean capital of Pyongyang, which is also wrong. Pyongyang. That's it. That's all it is. And it's just, I don't like that they're perpetuating this. I don't want to sound like some asshole foreigner, purposely messing it up. I want to be a respectful person and get people's pronunciation right. You just gave the example. If someone tells you this is how my name is pronounced, you don't go, no, it's not. No, I know how it's pronounced. You respect them and say their name correctly at the very least.
So here's the devil's advocate, but I have a response to it. But the devil's advocate is we're doing this telecast from Los Angeles. We had the Olympics in Paris, not Paris. And we had it in Athens, not Athena.
Yeah, but does it really make sense? Is Pyeongchang somehow more American?
Right, that's the thing. So the reason these things are there are because of basically grandfathered in ways of saying these countries from long ago. Like it used to be like in Shakespeare, there's like, it's not Dubois, it's Dubois, and that's how, in W.B. Du Bois. But like that is an Anglicanized version of it, which happened way back in the day when someone would leave a place, write it down, come back and say, here's how you say it. Athens, those are Anglicanized things. But Pyeongchang, we are learning it now. We might as well learn it right.
Well, it's just also they're a journalistic institution. You should be abiding by what is the correct way as opposed to what is the way I like.
It seems like they're making a choice as to like, this is our audience. Our audience likes to say Pyeongchang. It's easier for them to say Pyeongchang.
But they're in a position where they could teach people to do it correctly. I would much rather be right than whatever I think is the right way.
And we've made there have been
objectively right.
Right, there have been changes made. We didn't have the Olympics a couple years ago in Turin. In Turin, like the shroud, like Turin, which people called Torino. We had it in Torino. NBC, the same network, made the decision to call it Torino for those games, and so they sure as hell can make the change to Pyeongchang, from Pyeongchang to Pyeongchang. If you're not saying Pyeongchang, you're saying it Pyeongrang.
Oh boy.
And it probably offended.
We can do what that one news outlet did and just write PF Chang Olympics.
I did hear that. Who did that?
ABC.
ABC, God bless them. All right, that's that story. We're gonna move on. We're going rapid fire today. Some folks have been getting random sex toys sent to them, and they're frustrated because they can't find out who it's from, what's the right way to approach this. This is what a sex toy looks like.
Why did we do this visual?
I don't know, I asked. Move on. I did that, that's my fault. I was gonna have this whole thing where it landed, where I was like, they opened the box and it was that, but I forgot it, and I asked. It's allowed. There's
there
no
are
FCC.
These implements called sex toys. Now, for those of you who don't know, we have a visual.
Today, we just covered the whole like Shaun White thing on Pop Trigger today, where he was making people look at stuff. But I've gone through a lot of FCC things where they're like, you can show that, but if there's veins, you can't show it. Anyways, people are getting this. It's a crazy story that takes a lot of twists and turns. There's a person named Nikki, it was reported, she opened her box and it was a sex toy, and then she kept getting more like parts for it in the mail.
And she didn't order it.
She did not order it at all. She did a little research and she says, I looked the sex toy up and it's $25, which is sort of substantial. But for a sex toy, no, the ones we showed, which we're not gonna show again.
I think for a free gift.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
What would you do?
I have done. So it's a little bit different.
Okay.
A fan sent me a sex toy at the Young Turks PO box, and I did not like it because it was invasive. It was like, why would you assume this is something I would want from you, or this is what our relationship is? It isn't. And I was fuming about it. And then an unnamed employee said, yeah, that's terrible. Can I have that? And I gave it to them. And it's just, I can understand how Nikki from this article might feel, which is, who is sending me this? Who has this intention? Is he near me? Does he know where I live?
Yeah, she tried to contact Amazon and she got the runaround a bunch of different times. She said it was the same cycle where she'd get one person, they'd kick it up to someone else. They'd say, sorry, there's nothing we can do because we have to protect the privacy of the people who make purchases and we can't tell you who it is.
But it's not like she had it on a wish list.
Right, she did not. And so it's more widespread than she thought. She said according to a report, a student at Canada's Ryerson University received a vibrator. A student union at University of Regina received a male sex toy called a fleshlight, so Regina received a vagina. And an Amazon source said that sex toys, for some reason, have made a sizable portion of the packages. Now, how is this happening? There is one theory that it's actually the sex toy companies themselves, the vendors, who are buying these and just sending them to random people whose addresses that they get, who they scrape.
Is it being fulfilled by Amazon though, or is it being fulfilled by them?
I don't know for a fact.
Because she seems to think it's coming from Amazon.
She thinks it's coming from someone within Amazon. According to this one theory, Amazon uses a review system that heavily weights verified purchases, reviews by users who have purchased a specific product through Amazon over other reviews. This could give sellers incentives to buy and ship their own products to strangers from dummy accounts. Those dummy accounts could give the product a 5-star review and then in turn help it surface higher in Amazon and Google searches. They say that's not the case, but yeah. What do you think? What was your take on all of this?
I think someone must have bought some contacts, including her address. That is the least unsettling theory I could put up with.
Right.
As opposed to a stranger knows where she lives and is sending her sex toys.
I don't know. It's weird because there's a lot of privacy issues boiled up in this, where you could be saying, if I send someone something and just because they didn't want it or for some reason.
Is the impetus here that she gets it and she goes, this is great, and she goes on Amazon and reviews it?
Yeah, no, there's no, I don't know. I've done a video about Amazon reviews of vibrators. They're amazing. There's one woman who uses batteries and markers to show how big they are.
Okay.
Anyhow, we have one more story to get to.
Your favorite, let's do it.
And it's my favorite. Okay, they're getting rid of cheeseburgers in Happy Meals. I hope you're happy, Ronald McDonald. I don't even know where this starts. Okay, so according to the Globe and Mail, McDonald's Corp is removing cheeseburgers from US Happy Meal menus and shrinking the French fry serving in one mighty meal, which is a meal for
it's a larger meal.
Yes, and part of a new global plan plan to cut calories and make its food for children more healthy.
Right.
They're getting rid of it.
And how does that make you feel, Brett?
Not happy. They say they have goals. By 2022, McDonald's aims to have at least half of the Happy Meals that are on their message boards contain 600 calories or less, 10% of calories from saturated fat, 650 milligrams of sodium, and 10% of calories from added sugar. You can still request a cheeseburger to be added, but it's not going to be posted. They say this will, discourage that behavior. They did the same thing with soda.
See, I don't see why that's so bad. It's not technically eliminated. You can have it if you really want it. But for those of people who are casually, oh, I don't know what to get my kid, a cheeseburger.
Yeah, I love it. Did you have a lot of Happy Meals?
Are you loving it? I remember I really wanted the Beanie Babies, and I would go back every week to get them.
Yep. If we could please bring up graphic number 90. The Beanie Babies, they gave away Beanie Babies. Now here's another thing, is they're gonna get rid of toys, they said. The company, which in the past has taken heat for using toys to promote its Happy Meals, plans to offer books as a year-round replacement option in 100 markets by the end of 2019, up from 20 today.
Well, here's the deal.
Yeah.
If you don't like the books and no cheeseburgers, you don't have to buy that meal.
I know, this is a good thing, right?
I think it is. Because if you wanna make that healthy choice, sure. If you want to make an unhealthy choice, yeah, do that. But when people are going to McDonald's, they're not necessarily looking for a salad. They know what they're getting into when they go to McDonald's. But this is for kids, which often happens because of a choice the parents made. And childhood is a time that's very crucial for lifelong eating habits, for developing obesity or not.
Yeah, that's true. 40% of kids eat fast food daily, according to an American Heart Association report, and 15% of customers order Happy Meals when they go to McDonald's. And it's one of those things, it makes total sense. I'm kind of joking about it because it just makes me sad that they're gonna phase out toys, but it does seem like a drug dealer being like, you want a toy, eat a burger. We're just gonna give you, and we're gonna call it a Happy Meal, and you will be happy eating crap, and we'll also pay you off with toys.
I mean, if you really want that stuff, you can still go to Burger King.
That's true. In 1979, they came out with the first Happy Meal. In 2011, they added apples. 2012, clementines, fat-free chocolate milk. In 2012, they also got rid of soda. In 2014, they added Go-Gurt. In 2016, they took away artificial preservatives from their McNuggets. And in 2017, they replaced Minute Maid with a different kind of juice called Honest Kids, less sugar. It's good because a lot of people who don't have the financial resources to really buy the right, certain kinds of foods, they end up going to McDonald's, and if McDonald's can make low price food that's also healthy, that's a great thing.
Yeah.
All right, everyone, that's all the show we have for you today. Watch Kim Horcher on Nerd Alert right here.
Watch Brett Ehrlich on Pop Trigger.
You're gonna have a really great time. And then we'll see you guys probably tomorrow morning.
We'll see you at the party if you're going. And if you're a member, you can watch it.
And please don't send me male sex toys to our P.O. box. That's an order. But if you do, I won't be upset. Bye-bye.